Fellas, Link is hot. But this universal fact leaves me with a question. How do I talk about how attractive he is to me for well over 30 minutes while also framing it as an interesting YouTube video? And that's when I went to the bathroom.
Oh! I made a tier list where I get to scientifically analyze every Link and determine which one is scientifically the most attractive. Is it a perfect nose? Maybe perfect toes. Is it a master sword or just a Kakiri down below? All these questions you never asked and more answered on today's episode of PM Jerry. Which Link is scientifically the most attractive?
First off, what makes someone scientifically attractive? Everything about them. Your face, your personality, your monetary and social status, your intelligence, the number of copies of Tingle's Rosy Rupee Land you own, and everything in between. So there is a lot that could go into any specific Link's attractiveness. But I've boiled it down into roughly 5 categories, each evaluated on a scale of 20, with bonus points being available through the other category. So if the Links have some attractive aspect of themselves that can't be properly quantified in these other categories, it can be applied. So, as an example of how the scoring will work, here are my stats. I have a mediocre score, but with a little help from my Tingle's Rosy Rupee Land copies, I can drastically improve my score. And once my points have been calculated, I will be placed in a tier according to my score. We'll get into greater detail of how each category works as we make our way through the ranking of the Links, which this is our list of. If you'd like a full explanation of how Links were chosen, check the description.
But for now, we're finally ready to begin scientifically evaluating all of our Links. And one bonus rule. We're going to assume the evaluation is taking place 1 to 2 years after their games have concluded. Because most of the time, Link is either 16 or 17 years old. And I'm not sexualizing children here. I would never do that. Do not accuse me of that. Okay?
Alright, to introduce us and hopefully help us understand how we're evaluating Link's attractivity scientifically, we have our favorite cross-dresser, the Hero of the Wild. The Hero of the Wild is featured in 4 games: Breath of the Wild, Tears of the Kingdom, Age of Calamity, and Super Smash Bros. Ultimate. Now, the first 3 are all the same guy, just at different points in time. And they look basically the same other than hairstyle and missing appendages. But Smash Bros. Link, despite still looking the same, has no clear canonical connection to these other 3. So the Hero of the Wild will be separated into 2 Links. And since we're dealing with a lot of characters named Link who look similar to each other, we're gonna give them all code names that should hopefully help alleviate confusion. So we will call these 2 Links Got Me Wild and Link and Would Smash Link. Luckily, they have the same face and body, so we can evaluate those statistics at the same time. Physical attractiveness of the face and body is evaluated on these categories generally.
Everything in this video is generally, because attraction is made up in your brain, and every brain makes attraction up differently. And I can prove it, because on the site rule34.xxx, there is 13 results for Beetle.
Now, each category is worth 1 point, with a few exceptions that are worth 2, which I'll cover as we get to them. Or right now, with face symmetry. Face symmetry is probably the most commonly cited aspect of facial attractiveness, as it is probably the most consistent way to tell if a face is attractive. And as you can see, Got Me Wild and Link has perfect face symmetry, as is pretty standard for cartoon video game characters, which you'd think would score him full points in this category. However, face symmetry can be too perfect. Since a perfectly symmetrical face is completely impossible for humans to have, seeing a face with perfect symmetry does not make you see pure beauty. Instead, it looks a bit scary, thanks to the uncanny valley effect, even if they might still look somewhat attractive. This is why the face symmetry category gets 2 points. Because while a lot of these Links have perfect face symmetry and it looks fine in the game, their faces would have a slightly uncanny valley feel to them in real life. So they receive 1 point in the category, which will be the case for most Links. But the few Links with slightly off symmetry but still near perfect will receive 2 points. These Links both received only 1 in that category, but still fared fine in the others, since they are youthful, have good skin, have blue eyes, which is one of the most generally attractive eye colors alongside green and hazel. He has a small nose, has good canthals, which are the edges of your eyes, which you want angled up and spaced far apart. This is a real thing that actually matters, trust me. Has a low facial depth as well as height, has a face shape that is not circular, has a good angle of facial convexity as well as a good nasolabial angle, and also an angular jaw. They didn't get every point in the face category though. They do miss out on points because of their blonde hair. A point can only be achieved in this category for brown hair because blondes and other colors are seen as unattractive in males. Blondes in particular are seen as too aloof to be mates. They also lose points for having too small of a forehead. The ideal forehead is 4 fingers tall and Link's is 3. He also has too large of a facial volume because the Japanese like their oversized eyes.
You see, Japanese art styles tend to give their characters much larger eyes to help them express themselves better in... Fascinating.
His chin is too recessed as well, and he has no facial hair compared to the preferred light facial hair. I'll explain some of these categories in more detail later when they become relevant, but for now, this gives these 2 Links a face score of 13. Now onto the body, where they each scored a bit worse. They did get 2 points for their movement, which they received for having a run and walk that are confident and natural. He also gets points for his narrow waist, flat abdomen, being a little muscular but not too muscular, having little to no body hair, having a spry and youthful body, having smooth and clear skin, and for feet. However, he did miss out on a lot of points, including 2 for height because he's 5'2". Points can only be received for being 5'8", which is average male height, and you get 2 points for being 6 feet tall or more. He also missed out on 2 points in the hog category because I don't know what to tell you, there's just nothing there. Also, his generally skinny body makes it so he has a skinny chest, lacks broad shoulders, an eye-shaped torso instead of the preferred V, and no booty to speak of, leading to only a 9 in this category for our heroes here. And that's it for the physical appearance, which means we can't evaluate Got Me Wildin' and Would Smash the same anymore because they behave differently in their games. For example, in intelligence, while Got Me Wildin' solves numerous shrine puzzles, including some of the most difficult puzzles in the series, this guy is dumb as bricks. You see, when Link uses his down B in Smash Ultimate, he throws a detonatable bomb. And when he detonates it, that's a Sheikah Slate. A piece of technology so advanced it can stop time, and he doesn't use it. And not just that, he's brought none of the other abilities we know he has access to from his game. He brings no extra food, no special arrows outside of his final smash, no champions abilities, and no manifestations of children's bodies that obey his every whim. How do you even pull this off? I feel like I was begging for these guys to get out of my way in Tears of the Kingdom. Honestly, this whole system of manifestations of bodies is just not well thought through throughout the whole game. I mean, what happens when Link has to go to the bathroom?
I'm just gonna need y'all to turn around. No. Turn around. Okay, quickly empty Lake Hylia. No!
How did he manage to make him leave when they would have actually been useful? This intelligence score goes for all the Links in Smash because none of them know how to bring more than a bow, boomerang, and bombs, earning them all a 1 in intelligence. Got Me Wildin' earns himself a respectable 19 because he solves by far the most puzzles of any Link, thanks to the shrines. Status is pretty simple, just how well known he is as a hero and whether or not he's rich. And Would Smash Link earns a near perfect score of 18. Because he's known across so many universes, because there's over 100 stages in Smash, all of which would earn him fame in each of those universes. Got Me Wildin' Link should have a very high status, having saved the world twice. But in Tears of the Kingdom, after he has already saved the world once, you go from town to town, and nobody recognizes Link. The people of Hyrule apparently just do not care about the guy that saved their kingdom from Calamity Ganon.
How does an entire population of people forget that this guy saved them twice? What could possibly be going on in their minds that they would forget about all that?
He is still of a generally high political status, being so close with the new Queen of Hyrule, but despite all of these actions being huge world-saving moments, and for any other Link would earn them great fame, the people of Hyrule just don't care. So he only earns a status score of 7 out of 20. Personality is much more abstract, especially when none of these guys talk. Almost every Link got a bad score in personality because of this, even though it seems like a lot of them are still charming without it. And if we look at Got Me Wildin' Link in particular, he managed to end up in a love triangle between a fish woman and the princess of the entire nation, without talking. And it's not just those two. Multiple women in these games want to be with Link. This, alongside the way he just makes friends wherever he goes, does still earn him an 8, which is high because earning above a 10 is impossible for the Links that don't talk. And, Would Smash. He taunts, That's technically personality. 4. And finally, bonus points will be awarded to Got Me Wild and Link. 2 for his Ultra Hand because I would like to try, and 1 for this. Giving him a total of 59 points, and 46 for Wood Smash Link, meaning scientifically speaking, they're slept with your birth giver tier and objectively sexable tier. Alright, hopefully at least half of that made sense, because for the rest of the links, anything uninteresting, I'm gonna gloss over real quick and not explain it all so we can focus on the more interesting aspects. I'm gonna run through some simpler links real quick because we have a lot left to talk about. This link sprite is used across Minish Cap, 4 Swords, and 4 Swords Adventure, so we will be separated into 3 links. They will be known as Got My Ezlo Cap Up for Minish Cap, I've always wanted to have a foursome for 4 Swords, and hit me up if you're interested in a foursome for 4 Swords Adventure. Their looks don't score that well overall because we can't measure plenty of the body, causing them to miss out on points like body hair and feet because we simply can't see them. So by default, they receive no points for those sections. However, for all the links that we can't measure the link maker for, we'll still give them 1 of the 2 available points. Because like every man, if we were to ask him how big it is, he would say average. And trust me, men never lie about their size.
Hang on, oh!
But he still only gets a combined score of 13 for looks. Got My Ezlo Cap Up scores pretty average in the rest of the categories for not really having standout puzzles for intelligence, scoring him an 11, and not having any other known wealth or status outside of being a hero, scoring him a status of 10. And for personality, he doesn't talk, so he scores pretty poorly. But his hat could talk for him, so he does have a built-in wingman. However, I think most people would be weirded out by it, so it boosts him from the 1 or 2 he would have gotten only up to a 6. Our foursome lovers scored similarly on all of these, scoring the same 10 on status and wealth for only being a hero. I gave them 1 higher on intelligence, getting them 12 for technically having 4 brains, but there's still no notable puzzles that shows that those 4 brains are truly intelligent. And they get a 4 in personality because they would all earn 1, but there's 4 of them, so they get a 4. And they also get 3 bonus points for having 3 extra guys, giving these 3 links totals of 40, 42, and 42, making them all, scientifically speaking, settling. Next up, we can cover Mario Kart 8 Link, or I Want to 8 Him Up. I Want to 8 Him Up scores decently in face stats, but falls pretty short in the body category. The developers gave him a pretty basic body, presumably because you can't really see much of it when he's hunched over in the cart. He scores an 11 in status for being a top-level racer across the Mushroom Kingdom, Hyrule Kingdom, this random town filled with animals in futuristic Earth. So not actually that famous, but still kind of famous. He gets an 8 in personality. He still can't talk, but he has a lot of facial expressions and trick animations that make him appear to be a good time. Not enough to give him an above average score though. And he gets a 1 in intelligence, similar to the Smash Links, because if you take a look at this trick animation, he is just as big a dumbass because he has the entire Triforce and could just wish to win the race. And yet he doesn't, giving him a final score of a very measly 35. The Toon Links are all pretty samey as well. Toon Link has been used in a lot of games, but really only has 2 looks. The main one originating from Wind Waker, and what you look like when you're controlled by the DS stylus.
You know, I can't help but realize that there's a D-pad on this console, and this surely isn't the most efficient way to control my character. What the hell just happened?
There's a total of 6 Toon Links. 4 of them fall under the main style that you're used to seeing in most games, and we'll cover them first. Their Wake Up Looking This Good, Wood Smash Cartoon Edition, Threesome is acceptable as well, and Please Rule Me Warrior Cartoon Edition. They score decently physically. When it comes to more appearance-based things like eye color, they do rather well. The problem comes with the more shape-based aspects, like the angle of facial convexity and nasolabial angle. These angles tend to define how good the shape of your face is, with the nasolabial angle being the angle between your nose and the bottom half of your face. For men, you'd ideally want about 93 to 99 degrees. And facial convexity is just the angle of your whole face. It's a little more complicated than the nasolabial angle, but it's just mostly how far in or out your chin and forehead are. And our Toon's angles here are horrendous, because his head would work as a soccer ball. And since they lost out on so many points here, if these tunes couldn't make up for it in other areas, they just fell to the bottom. Like Wood Smash Cartoon Edition and Rule Me Warrior Cartoon Edition. Both of them are pretty dumb, especially Wood Smash Cartoon. And while they have some personality thanks to facial expressions, and Wood Smash Cartoon has some serious status, they just can't climb up that high in the ranking. Now, Wake Up Looking This Good and Threesome is Acceptable Too actually get quite a bit closer to being husband material. While their status isn't anything special, they fare pretty well in intelligence, especially Wake Up. And for Links, they both do amazing in personality. They have so many unique expressions, truly making them stand out amongst other Links. And Wake Up Link manages to even score above a 10 because... Come on. Have you ever heard a more attractive pickup line? He has some ability to speak, which prohibits most Links from getting above a 10. He does, however, still have a face that would be more fun to kick than kiss, so their final scores of 51 and 49 only get them Slept With Your Birth Giver and Objectively Sexable tier. The last two tunes use this low poly model made for the DS, being Fan Me and Spiritual Love. And besides the lower cut collar to help him show off his cleavage, he does pretty bad physically. It's a bad start for them, and Spiritual Love doesn't score amazingly anywhere else, and if it wasn't for his good personality score, he would be in the only match on Tinder tier. But his personality score boosts him to settling. And Fan Me would have the same problem, but Phantom Hourglass has a weird ending. During the game, Phantom Hourglass, you're sailing on the Great Sea from Wind Waker in search of new lands, which you'd think with a planet flooded by gods would just mean new islands. However, they happen to find an entire continent. Never mind the insane plot holes this causes. This would imply that there's some entire other civilization living on this continent, but while there are a couple groups of people there, if you look at the Zelda timeline after Phantom Hourglass, it says a new Hyrule Kingdom is founded. Clearly intended to be on the continent they had found, which means these four random people somehow managed to enforce their own rule on the Goron Anuki and Lokomo people, making Tetra Queen and this Link King, and being the King of the Kingdom would give him a full status of 20. Also, these pirates are now canonically noblemen somehow. And that's not where the interesting stuff ends, because we get to see what this kingdom becomes only a little over a century later, thanks to Spirit Tracks. And you might notice, for this pretty young kingdom, having only started from a handful of people, there's a lot of people around. And while I'm sure some people did immigrate over from the old Hyrule, probably not very many. I mean, it took America a long time for people to really start colonizing it after it was discovered. But this is a fully developed society of people. So if you're not going to physically be able to bring that many people over, how else do you get a bunch of people in your kingdom? Moving past our eye candy bobbleheads, we can finally talk about a normal looking Link. Zelda II Link, who will codename I'd Adventure to Link Up With Him, does pretty poorly in personality and status. But physically, he does pretty alright. His body in particular is on the upper ends of other Links, partially thanks to his contrapposto posture. This posture is basically just standing with most of your weight on one foot, causing your hips and shoulders to become perpendicular. This is often considered the most attractive way to stand. It's been used in multiple sculptures in history to help people pretend like they're calling these statues beautiful because of the posture and not because of the exposed penis. But I'd Adventure to Link Up With, for some reason, seems to always stand like this. Almost every sprite he has in the game has him standing like this, which has already scored him pretty well, but he also scores amazing in intelligence because Zelda 2 makes no sense. He somehow has the intelligence to walk through random walls in all of these bullshit dungeons, and this amazing intelligence makes him objectively sexable. Scientifically speaking, of course. We can also do Cadence of Hyrule Link real quick, or Shut Up and Dance With Me. This is an indie game that somehow got permission to include Link and Zelda in their rhythm roguelike game. And while this is super cool, and the game looks really cool, this guy is ugly. He scores all right for the face and isn't unintelligent, but he has no personality and gained very little fame and status in the game. And he only got 3 points for his body, which is the worst of any Link. It's impressively bad. I honestly expect better of you, small Canadian indie developer Brace Yourself Games. Give me more attractive sprites next time. I mean, you had a Link that was built around dancing. Just imagine the potential if he was hot. Moving on from that, the Hero of Legend is the Link that is included in the most unique non-crossover games. He stars in A Link to the Past, Link's Awakening, and Oracle of Ages and Seasons, giving him by far the most unique looks. And I don't really want to take the time to figure out all of the weird versions of this guy across all the games. So we're just going to cover this sprite for A Link to the Past, this sprite for the Oracle games, and this Link who I'm still not convinced isn't a 3-year-old in a Halloween costume for Link's Awakening. We'll call them I Passed Out, Oracle Guy, and A Wet Awakening.
Oh, not again. I should have known it wasn't a toilet. Oh, dude, fish could live in this bed with how much I piss in it. Are you kidding me?
And physically, they're all hideous, having some of the lowest scores across the board. In fact, I Passed Out for his body only got the default points most Links get, and also 1 extra for his butt, which I gave to him mostly out of pity. The other points they get do keep them pretty though. They all did well in status, being literally the Hero of Legend, and while personality-wise I Passed Out doesn't do too well, Wet Awakening and Aura Cool Guy seems somewhat charismatic, as Wet Awakening seems to have some romantic relationship with Marin, and Aura Cool Guy is potentially with a god. I think. I don't think anyone's played the Oracle games, so I can probably get away with assuming anything about this relationship. So no one can disprove this score of 8 in personality. But the main area they shine is intelligence, with every single one of them needing to solve some pretty difficult puzzles. Aura Cool in particular has Jabu Jabu's Belly, which is arguably the dumbest and hardest dungeon in the whole series. I think. I'm still pretty confident no one has actually played this game, and these people on the internet are just lying. I mean, they stole the name from an Ocarina of Time dungeon. That feels like a dead giveaway. But it does get us our first max intelligence score, giving a major boost to this Link's sex ability, which means scientifically speaking, Aura Cool Guy has objectively slept with your birth giver. And also, I Passed Out got 43, making him settling, and 48 for Wet Awakening, making him objectively sexable. How in the hell am I gonna clean this? Since we finally got through those other sprites, let's just get rid of our last generic sprite, Zelda 1, or his game only succeeded for the sex appeal Link. He actually has a decent face. It's pretty attractive, however, he doesn't have the greatest body. But still, Miyamoto seems to have somewhat wanted people to be attracted to this character. In the other areas, he doesn't fare as well, as he seems to have no friends, and he can't gain much status in this place because there are only 6 people in this version of Hyrule. But luckily, Zelda 1 is bullshit, so to actually beat this game, he had to be very intelligent, boosting him away from the lower tiers and comfortably into settling. However, there is another sprite for this exact same game for the Satellaview version of this game. This is BS Link from BS The Legend of Zelda, and if you look at him, any scientist could clearly tell he's uglier than the original. This next Link may be the most anticipated Link, because everyone I've talked to about this topic seems to love this man. Twilight Princess Link makes 2 notable appearances, one in Twilight Princess and one in Super Smash Bros. Brawl /4. Their codenames will be Twilight of My Life and Wood Smash Wolf Edition. And he is stunning, having one of the best physical scores of any Link, and having the best body score of all the Links. Wood Smash Wolf Edition receives the rest of the standard Smash scores, getting him pretty easily into objectively sexable. Twilight of My Life receives a pretty average status score for a Link, but personality and intelligence he does really well. It feels like every person in Twilight of My Life's hometown is just in love with this guy, even though he never talks. So he ends up with an 8 in personality for this unspoken charisma. And for intelligence, he receives our second perfect intelligence score, since Twilight Princess has numerous difficult puzzles and another contender for the hardest puzzle in the series with these Guardian statues. The puzzle is that you're controlling both of these statues simultaneously that move in opposite directions when you move, and there's all these ledges you have to get them stuck on to get them in the right position, and Nintendo, I was 8 years old. What do you expect from my tiny little child brain? And those points from intelligence give him an amazing score of 62. Scientifically speaking, anyone would already want to pork this man. However, guys, we have to have a serious discussion. Does this earn him positive or negative bonus points? He can turn into a wolf, and I'm sorry to tell you, this is attractive to some people. And by some, I mean at least 160 million people if the Twilight book sales mean anything. However, this would also weird out a lot of people, so this would likely be seen as a negative to more people than a positive. And most of the science of hotness is based on majority opinion. So this should probably result in negative points, but if he doesn't want you to see him in his wolf form, he never will. You'll only ever be able to actually see this wolf form if he wants you to, because the only thing that triggers it is exposure to Twilight. And if you're in the Twilight with him at any point, you won't be able to see his wolf form because you'll become a helpless spirit. And while he can expose himself to Twilight with this rock, that's his choice, and you'll never see it unless he wants you to. Meaning, bestiality can only be a positive in this situation. So, he earns bonus points. Probably not too many though, only a couple of bonus points, because this is still super weird after all, right? There is also technically one more Link in Twilight Princess, the hero Shade. This guy is the dead spirit of the Link from Ocarina of Time and is unsurprisingly scientifically ugly. He also has no status because he's dead and got negative bonus points because he's dead. But he can talk, giving him a pretty high personality score, even if he doesn't tend to greet people in very inviting ways. But most importantly, since he's based on the Ocarina of Time links, those games have some insanely dumb puzzles, most notably the most hated temple in the series, the Water Temple of Ocarina of Time. And in Majora's Mask, there's also the Mirror Room, being yet another contender for the hardest puzzle in the series, giving us yet another perfectly intelligent Link. Let's move on from one of the most physically unattractive Links to the most physically attractive Link. Skyward Sword Link, who will codename Fell from Heaven Link, scores amazingly in both physical categories, with the single most gorgeous face of any Link. He got a combined score of 25 physically. He also does well personality-wise, being in a similar position to Twilight Princess Link in his hometown, being beloved by the people of the town despite an inability to talk. This nearly shoots him to the top on its own. The problem is, while there are difficult dungeons in Skyward Sword, they don't compare to other games. And he doesn't even gain that much status as a hero because most of his adventure happens away from civilization and there isn't much civilization remaining in Hyrule. If he scored just a bit better in these categories, he'd be a hero of hunks, but as it stands, he's scientifically speaking only sex with your birth giver tier. Link Between Worlds Link, who we will codename Take Over My World Link, isn't super notable. He does score well in face, but is pretty average in all other aspects with nothing all that notable going on, but is still objectively sexable. However, there are two Links in this game, because this purple bunny man is apparently Link from another dimension. He's supposed to be Link from Lorule, which is Hyrule but with a darker color palette, which you think would make him evil in some way, but he's a really good guy actually. You know, other than his innate capitalistic greed and exploitation of the lower class. You see, when Ravio's entire realm is in danger of being destroyed, he does not see a crisis, but a business opportunity. He travels to Hyrule to find the hero of that world as he needed to in order to save his realm, but instead of just giving him all the tools he'd need to save his entire realm, he created a rental business. Not even selling you the items you need, which would already be bad, he turns it into a full-blown service designed to maximize his profits where you rent items instead of purchasing them. He does let you buy them later, but only after you've spent thousands of rupees filling his bank account. And even when you're finally allowed to purchase them, it's at insane prices. We're talking 1,200 rupees for an ice rod. And the cherry on top is he's able to convince Link that none of this is wrong, and in fact, this service is so needed, he should run it out of Link's own house, making him a rich, smooth talker with a good face. Now that is a hunk if I've ever seen one. Scientifically speaking, of course. I also gave him a bonus point for the rabbit mask because I like it.
Remember, scamming those around you only makes you more attractive.
Ravio is also in Hyrule Warriors, but he gets essentially the same scores because he's still a businessman and we can't check to see if his face changed, so he loses 3 points on intelligence but gains 1 back for being tall in this game. And while we're talking about Warriors, let's just finish this game off. Warriors Link, or Rule Me Warrior, is actually way more standard than I expected. He does do well physically and gains basic scores in all other categories. He doesn't have any real puzzles for intelligence, but there is still a decent amount of battlefield strategy to the Warriors games, so he ends up with a pretty good score in the objectively sexable tier. But the more notable Link original to this game is Linkle. This is Girl Link, who we will codename Rule Me Warrior I Get to Be Straight for once edition. Some of the categories change when evaluating women. You can pause and read through the changes if you want, but all you really need to know is Link as a woman is quite appealing. She gets the same scores as original Rule Me Warrior in intelligence and status, but where she really shines is personality. She can talk in full sentences for one, already giving her a massive boost in this category, and she's very animated and energetic because the developers knew what they were doing. And pretty much everyone in this game just seems to like and get along with her, giving her the very first perfect personality score. Alright, who's ready for Dick Link? This is the Legend of Zelda TV series, produced by Dick, known for mild misogyny and looking pretty bad. The Link in the show, who we will name Excuse My Blushing, was definitely given an interesting face design. While he does have a good body score, his face doesn't fare nearly as well for an overall mediocre physical score. And he's also just really dumb, to the point where it feels like he's basically ignoring the obvious plans and traps of Ganon.
Pull to kiss Zelda, don't mind if I do. Oh, is this what rape is? Oh my god. Ah!
However, he does really well in our other two categories. Despite being really annoying, he can talk, and he does seem to be a generally charismatic guy, because he does get the Princess of Hyrule Kingdom to fall in love with him. He also clearly has high status, somehow having his own room in the castle, despite assumedly just being a regular guard. I don't know what he did to earn this, but it gives him a high status score too, which means scientifically speaking, he is objectively sexable. For this next section, I just want to be clear, I didn't mean for this to happen. Link, the Faces of Evil for the Philips CDI needs no introduction. It features this monstrosity, which is legally a Link, who we will call Can't Deny Its Beauty. And I now somehow have to figure out all of these physical aspects of his face and body, which seem to continue to change from scene to scene. I tried to use the least horrifying faces that weren't constantly moving to determine what he actually looked like, and I figured he deserved a charitable interpretation since he probably wouldn't score well regardless. But those aren't bad scores.
No, I guess he's not the worst looking guy in the world.
I don't know what to say besides, well done, Phillips. This is, scientifically speaking, a model of a man. I at first thought he was getting lucky, and this was probably just gonna keep him out of the bottom tier. Until I started calculating his other scores. You see, his intelligence is actually really high, because like a lot of the other early Zelda games, the puzzles in this game are bullshit. Even though there were well-designed Zelda games out at the time, they still designed it like this, with puzzles without a clear solution, giving him a good intelligence score.
It is a bit of a feat of intelligence to be able to figure you have to bomb that specific rock 20 times. I wouldn't have figured it out.
And he yet again lives in the castle with the king and princess for some unknown reason, despite assumedly just being a regular royal guard, which yet again gives him a good status score.
And with loyalty as well.
And nearly every person in this game seems to love Link. It's not perfect, some people treat him poorly, but the ability to talk and be beloved gives him a pretty good intelligence score, meaning his final score is 68. Making him, scientifically speaking, the peak of Link prettiness thus far.
He is the hottest Link. No! No!
You know what? Maybe it's fine. We can remedy this. There's still plenty of Links left, and I know just the Link. The Link from a game known for over-sexualizing their characters. Soulcalibur II. Big buff men, women who aren't wearing clothes, and whatever this thing is, all alongside the one man we care about. This is my soulmate Link, and he is a guest character in Soulcalibur II for the GameCube. And physically, he's... okay. That's a little lower than I was expecting. A little underwhelming when the rest of the characters look like this, but maybe his other scores like status... that's average, but maybe with perfect intelligence. Oh, he left all his weapons at home, like Smash Link. And he has barely any facial expressions or personality to speak of. Come on, Namco. I feel like this should have been so easy for you guys. You made this woman's chest move like this, and you give this guy a 110-degree nasolabial angle?
We have to move on to the Ruby Game Link. We have to figure out how to defeat him. We're gonna do it. We need all hands on deck. We need the Link among Links, the man who made the series what it is today. The hero of time.
The hero of time has taken so many unique forms over the years, and I have full faith that one of these will reach the top. And they come out with a strong start, with their worst contenders all still scoring in the 40s, and these are all Links from the Smash series, which has naturally limited the points he could receive. But his best incarnations jump straight to top tier. Ocarina My World and Ocarina My World 3D. Look at this man. both of these two are as hot as a raging fire physically. They even have slight differences in their face, allowing them to get both points for symmetry. And they score amazingly in the other categories, for the Water Temple being one of the hardest dungeons in the series, having the hottest girl in town all over him, and just being one of the most well-renowned heroes of all Zelda games, being well known across the entirety of Hyrule in 2 separate timelines, giving Adult Ocarina My World 64 61 points and Adult Ocarina My World 3D 63 points.
They are so unbelievably hot. And yet, it's not enough to defeat him. But I have one more trick. One more trick up my pants sleeve. Ah! Young Link.
Yes, Young Link! That's 5 more Links that could save us. I guess 2 of them are Smash, and the terrible intelligent personality score makes it pretty difficult for them to get anywhere. And it's basically the same story for the Hyrule Warriors Link, but these guys are all physically rather pleasing to the eyes, which could bode well for our last 2. Young Link from the N64 games and the 3DS games. The adult versions already scored really well, and these guys are basically the same as the adult versions, but they star in one more game, Majora's Mask. Majora's Mask doesn't enhance their personality score at all, but it does raise their status, as they are now a hero in another realm of Termina. And it raises the intelligence score to the absolute max, because this mirror room must have been an absolute terror back in the day to people who were kids and are now over 30. And these 3 categories bring him all the way to 48 on their own, which means one of these 2 would need a physical score of 26 to beat CDI Link, a nearly impossible score. And while they're beautiful, they only get totals of 19 and 21.
And it's not enough. As much as it pains me to say, I'm out of Links, and no one could beat, can't deny its beauty.
In Majora's Mask, you can get masks that completely transform your body, just like Twilight Princess Link, which was bonus points for him. Well, I'm not sure anyone will get excited about a rock or a baby tree. There's 2 masks that undoubtedly enhance these Links. Fierce Deity allows him to essentially turn into his more attractive older self, which basically means he can artificially increase his physical score at any time. However, the real big addition comes with the Zora. For one, Zora are generally around 6 feet tall, making him basically perfect male size for humans. And due to their water-based biology, they would be incredibly slick for certain activities, so you could easily play with one for hours without getting sore. They also don't wear clothes, so it'd be incredibly easy to get in the mood. And due to their ability to directly absorb water, they can easily recover from fatigue and could keep going for hours. No other transformation comes close to this level of compatibility.
And if you pull out enough, your Vaporeon will turn white. Why did I say that?
This is undeniably an amazing positive, making him clearly deserving of at least 5 bonus points if we're being conservative. Bringing 3DS Link to 67 and Young Link from the Nintendo 64 games just 1 point above CDI Link, making it undeniable. Young Link from Ocarina of Time and Majora's Mask for the Nintendo 64 is the most attractive Link to ever exist.
Whoa, you can't say that.
Why not?
That's a child.
Now remember, we're assuming Link is 18.
That doesn't work here. His name is Young Link, and just looking at him, he can't be older than 12.
You don't know that.
Yes, I do.
No.
Yes, any logical person would be able to come to the conclusion that you've been sexualizing a child for the last few minutes.
Well, age is just a number.
Absolutely not!
Well, there you have it. The definitive list of how scientifically attractive every Link is. And now, for better or for worse, you will know how scientifically attractive every Link is for the rest of your life, somewhere in your subconscious.
Which Link surprised you the most? Be sure to let me know in the comments.
Young Link. Young Link surprised them the most.
Please just let me finish this off.
Okay, fine.
Thanks so much for making it all the way to the end, and I will see you next time.
I'm deleting the footage.
No!